The Hogsty is brought to you by TicketClub.com, your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Whether you're looking for game, theater, or live performance tickets, don't sweat it. TicketClub.com has you covered. So make sure you're going there for all your live entertainment needs, and make sure you're clicking over to them from the banner at the top of thehogsty.com.
By fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Welcome back to the Hogsty, DC's unofficial leading source for all things Redskins in the NFL, and hey, some other stuff too. Brought to you, of course, by TicketClub.com. Get your tickets today for the Redskins-Eagles game. It's the last home game of the season, and you know the tickets are available. So head on over to TicketClub.com and make sure you're getting there from the link at the top of our page. All right, so Alex and I have been lamenting how difficult it is to gin up energy for these last few games of the season. I'm hoping Jamal and Steve can put some pep in our step here. Jamal, you missed last week. How are you dealing in the fallout of this devastating loss? Are you feeling hopeful?
Oh my goodness! First off, you were 100% wrong when you started off with hopeful. I have no hope. There is no hope. But yeah. No, I'm doing good. I'm feeling good. Like I told you all last week, I actually didn't feel bad missing majority of the game. We had
no, you shouldn't have. I wish I had.
Or playoffs. So I was like, yeah, I'm not about to leave at 1:00 when I can just take my time, finish these games, and then check on the score. If we happen to win, whoop-de-doo. Lo and behold, it's 40-0 at halftime.
Yep.
So yes,
yeah,
it was. Yep. I'm feeling good. But I don't have any hope right now.
But you did miss the start of the Josh Johnson era.
Yeah, that's true. I would argue that Alex missed most of that game as well, even though he was sitting right in front of a television.
Oh no, I don't get blackout drunk, Steve. I've never blacked out in my life. I just get angry.
You were angry on the last show. That must
as we can tell by that 4-minute clip that is now nowhere to be found.
Deleted.
If you all heard it, it was pure comedy. If you haven't, I feel bad for you.
Right, and if you didn't hear the 10 minutes we deleted off the show in the end, it's because we deleted it off it.
But it's safe to say, folks, if you're not following us here, much of our raw emotions, particularly Alex's, had to be removed because they weren't quite appropriate for the air. But I'm sure you can appreciate where we're coming from with that.
This is why we don't broadcast live.
Right.
Among many other reasons.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Alex wasn't the only person that's clearly very angry in the last few days, because we've seen a story break about our good friend Mason Foster that has the fan base in an uproar. He clearly is upset. Does anybody have these tweets in front of them right now?
Well, they're not tweets because they're Instagram posts or whatever.
Yeah,
that's right.
I got them.
What do you call those?
Insta
posts? All right.
See, we're on Instagram. Are we not on Instagram? Shows you what I know.
I think we are. I don't think we do anything with it.
Exactly. I try to keep up with it. For those who actually follow us on Instagram, I try to keep up with it, but I struggle. I ain't going to lie to you, but I try.
Yeah. Well, it's a photo-based thing, and we don't have like a full-time photography thing going on, so... What are we going to do? Post pictures of Jamal and my lunches or something?
Other ways,
we have enough
and things like that. I just got to get more active. I'm going to try. Everybody.
We have enough training. We have enough training camp photos to last a lifetime. We just didn't do anything with them this year. Look, most of these tweets or these Instagram messages are inappropriate for me to read. Suffice it to say,
you can bleep yourself.
I mean, suffice to say, first of all, that he is apparently arguing with someone who appears to be a high school student. Yeah, I mean, and it's sort of a little bit disjointed because we're getting part of a conversation here. You know, but so, and by the way, I also say that I have heard that these are probably real. I'll say it like that. I cannot confirm 100%.
Mason confirmed they were real. Yeah.
Oh, he did? Okay, all right. Because I heard yesterday through the Underground Railroad that these were probably real. Okay, so the high school kid says, don't you get like $800,000 a year? that moment when a woman beater going to take your spot. And then Mason's response is, I made more last night than you'll make in your life. Millions, peasant. F you.
You got him, Mason.
Yeah,
you got
him.
Class act.
And then apparently Mason wants to fight this guy. And, somebody who is more urban inclined is going to have, or, millennial urban inclined is going to have to translate this for me because I'm old and not. But he says, drop the location, my little cousin looking for some action, easy money. I took that to mean as a fight challenge, but I'm not quite sure what that means. And then the kid responds and gives his high school, which I'm not going to read here. And then there's an ridiculous offer. Then Mason responds with an offer to let the guy perform sexual favors on him, if I can censor myself. And it goes on from there. It's that kind of thing.
Yep. Now, what about the screen grabs there of him saying things like F the fan base and that kind of thing? Are these confirmed as well as more or less being real?
that was the ones that my source said these are, it's out of character for Mason, but this is probably real. And if Jamal, you said that Mason's confirmed this, so all of it's apparently real.
So the fan base is freaking out. Obviously, this looks like a guy who doesn't, appreciate anything. This is a team that's struggling. The fans have been beaten down, and then to read something like this, obviously, what do you guys make of it, though? Are you taking this as seriously as everyone else does, or is this just a really crappy mood from a guy who's
Can I surprise
not
everybody?
playing well?
I'm probably going to surprise everybody, but I kind of laughed this off a little bit. Because in the world of Redskins problems right now, Mason Foster having a mental breakdown is pretty far down the list. It's unprofessional. He shouldn't argue with random morons on Instagram or whatever he's doing this on. That's just ridiculous.
Is that a bad thing to argue with random morons on social media?
If you're a public figure, yes.
Okay,
it's dumb
because you and I do it basically all the time.
I know, but we're nobody. Mason Foster's not a nobody.
We're not role models.
I think it's dumb and it's unprofessional, and he's just hurting himself. But I'm not going to get too worked up over it because this is just some, football player mouthing off. And frankly, I think this guy who released these tweets or whatever they are is just looking for attention. More than anything else, this is like a way to get this guy to get his 15 minutes of fame. And I don't really respect that either because, we've had stuff we could put out and we never have and never will because that's just weak, I think. So this didn't work me. This didn't get me worked up too much. I don't think you need to cut Mason Foster and all that stuff, And I think Jay did the right thing by basically saying, I don't know what this is all about, which is basically Jay's response.
I would agree that I think people do make too much of it. The team's in a bad state. Guys are getting pissed off. I'd rather see him pissed off about the way things are going than not care. That he has any emotion tells me more about that he'll at least try than maybe just, let a guy run by him.
Yeah. No, please go, Jamal, because I have nothing to add to this that hasn't already been said.
I didn't think of it as a big deal either. The action of him himself. First off, let me just say it was unprofessional. His situation, the type of person that he is, and the status that he has, within, he's not famous or a star football player, but he's popular.
He's a public figure.
He's a public figure. So him saying anything in the public light is going to be a problem. But then, the issue with the direct messages or private messages, that's something within itself. However, I don't have an issue with him saying what he said in private messages at all. You felt how you felt. And I actually tweeted this. I don't get why people were in an uproar, specifically the fan base. I don't get why people were in an uproar or acting like this was some damning evidence of Mason Foster, knowing that we're on Twitter all the time or essentially almost every day. We see people, before he shut down his Twitter, he would tweet, this is not specifically what he tweet, but this is just an example. He tweet, it's a beautiful day outside, and then you got a troll coming in, or 3 or 4 of them coming in talking about but you can't tackle, you suck, you're one of the worst linebackers in the NFL, and he's just talking about how good of a day it is. So you deal with these things on a daily basis. I don't have a problem with you feeling the type of way that you feel. So like I said, I didn't think it was a big deal. So when I saw fans get upset, I was like, I don't know why. I just simply saying, I don't know why you're upset, given that he's been getting shit from you all all the time, and even still, he offered fans free tickets to the game, the Houston Texans game, after Josh Norman and DJ Swearinger said what they said. And Chris Thompson backed it up, and all of them backed it up. He still went out his way to give people free tickets or give a contest to get some people some free tickets to the game. He still went out his way to help you all out, and he's been a fan favorite for a while before this season. So he felt some type of way. I was like, all right, cool, I respect it. He definitely wasn't talking about me because I don't talk about him in terms of I don't troll him. Period. I don't think he's been playing well, but I mean, it is what it is. So you felt that way, that's cool.
And by the way, I'd like to point out that when Alex said we argue with people, we've never said any of the stuff that were in these tweets. We don't like that. I mean, we have spirited debates. We don't do that. But I think Jamal
saying in jest that you and I argue with people on
but we're not
it's
cursing
funny.
at people or anything like that.
Nah.
I think Jamal is basically right. I mean, Mason. First of all, the damning evidence against Mason is on his game film. Not on Twitter. Number one.
Burn.
I mean, look, he hadn't played well, but Mason in particular, those of you who don't follow this that closely, was getting just a ration of crap from fans. Like you said, it was everything he said. It's, people are cursing at him and calling him,
Well, I mean, the person who leaked this was undoubtedly one of those people who just spends all his day bitching about Mason Foster online, which, I mean, it sounds really sad to be sitting there yelling at a player on Twitter or Instagram or whatever.
And the guy I have no respect for is the guy who releases stuff. Whoever you are, if you're listening to us, you're weak and you're pathetic. I think that's a really weak move to me. I mean, I don't know if there's like a bro code. Didn't Jay say something like
he said something about a bro code? I don't know what that means.
I think that's maybe. I mean, I don't know about that, but I don't think you take private DMs and release them. I think that's pretty weak.
Well, and I think we all agree on that. Can we agree on one other thing, which is that don't send angry private messages on freaking social media. It's going to come out. If you say something crazy, it's going to come out.
Certainly not to an anonymous Twitter troll. No.
Yeah, I mean, I have, like Jamal said, I got no problem with what he's saying. Honestly, I really don't. I mean,
also,
fan
he's
base
also
is rough,
right.
But whatever.
He's kind of right, and some of the things he was saying. Not the way he said it, but the general thought, he's kind of right. So,
So you just don't be so careless on
social
media.
And from his perspective, since we are a balanced podcast, what he stated I forgot who he was talking to, but one of the beat reporters, he was talking to him through text message, and a synopsis, not verbatim because I don't remember verbatim what he said, but he basically said that what he sent in those direct messages, and he wasn't necessarily arguing with him. It was more so the dude was the person that he was talking to was trying to encourage him to keep his head up. And there's still 3 games left. You got to fight, et cetera, et cetera. But he was basically
saw some of that.
He said that at the time that he sent those messages, he was in 3 or 4 different group chats or different message chats on Instagram. And so when he sent those, he thought that he was sending it to a group of his friends that's in a group message on Instagram. So when he sent those messages, that was not necessarily to that fan. It was supposed to be to a group of his friends. Now, I'm not here to say you should believe him or not, but that's his side of the story. He sent those messages, but it was not to the people he thought he sent it to. Like I said, I'm not going to pick a side on if he's telling the truth or not. That's just what he said.
I have an easier time believing. Yeah, I mean, I have an easier time believing that than he sent it to a troll. I mean, I don't know anyone that would be that foolish. So I have an easier time believing that it was a mistake, honestly, than that he really sent this to some guy trolling him. Because that makes no sense.
And by the way, which one of you guys interviewed him? We interviewed him for this show.
I talked to him.
It was you, Alex? I mean, he was perfectly pleasant, when
very nice guy, smart guy. There's a reason why he's the guy calling all the plays, obviously.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
So the moral of the story, boys and girls, is don't send dumb stuff on social media and expect it to be private because it never will be private.
Don't argue. I've always said, like in your professional job, you send emails if you want a record of what you're doing. If you don't, you talk.
There you
go.
There you go. There you go. I'm down with it. I sign off on that.
Let's move on then to our other little bit of news before we get into the Jaguars stuff. Alex, I believe there was some little update here on the stadium stuff, and I know Steve's going to get much deeper into it on the show, but
right.
What was the update that we had?
All right, well, yeah, Steve said he wants to do a big thing about this, and it'll be his entire show for It's Just Business.
It's not going to be the entire show, no.
All right, maybe a segment. But,
Maybe a segment.
I mean, we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we didn't at least bring up the fact that there was a lot of stories in the news this week about the Redskins are secretly pursuing a deal along with the city of the District of Columbia to get a new stadium through the next budget that's going through Congress in, I think, 2 weeks from now? Something like that.
Well,
Mid-December, end of December.
They're trying to get a budget passed for the next. What this is, it's
a 99-year lease for the city of the property.
Yeah, let me give a very brief breakdown here. Number one, they're trying to get this into the annual appropriations bill because that's the place that congressmen are famous for putting tons of pork in appropriations bills because it's so big and some things you just don't want to fight over even they're stupid. That's where you get like the bridge to nowhere in Alaska and stuff like that. And so there's a small group of congressmen who are trying to get this put into the bill. The RFK Stadium site is owned by the federal government. It is leased to the District of Columbia, and the terms of the lease is that it has to be used for a stadium and like recreation, I believe it is.
Right, that's what the rule is, yes.
Yeah, and so that lease expires in 2036, and so that's only 9 years after the current FedEx Stadium lease expires, and so there needs to be a new lease if there's going to be a new stadium. And so what they are trying to do is get a 99-year lease, which was proposed by Mayor Bowser a year ago, I think, or roughly.
Yeah. She's been actually pushing the Trump administration to outright sell the land to the city.
Yeah,
and which surprisingly, given what Republicans generally don't want to own federal land, you'd think they would have been more for just selling the land.
It's just not really on their radar scope one way or another, more than anything.
Yeah, maybe. It could also be the whole theory that Trump wants to spite the NFL idea. But
I think it's more that nobody cares.
Yeah.
People need to understand one thing, okay? I hope it happens because I think if you're a Redskin fan, you'd be a fool not to be rooting for a stadium at an RFK site, obviously, right? We all want that.
Yeah.
But this is a very small group of congressmen doing this. And to be perfectly honest and frank, the mayor and the D.C. Council has about an influence of the size of a gnat in Congress. Okay, this is like step A, and it needs to go up to step double D. Okay,
However, if they were to get this, it would be probably the biggest step that they've had in the whole stadium debate in some time.
Well, yeah, because there's been no steps in the stadium debate. There's just been debate. Because we thought last year Virginia was in the lead because Governor Terry McAuliffe wanted it, but he's out of office.
The new governor apparently hates the idea.
Yeah, right. And so Virginia's kind of fallen off. And so now we have the National Harbor area in Maryland. It is sort of RFK in the National Harbor area. What's it called? Oxen Farm.
Yeah.
It's what was Oxen Farm. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the two leading sites. We probably ought to get Rick Snyder back on to talk about this in some more detail. But that's generally
because he lives apparently right by Oxen Farm. I live right by RFK. We could debate it out that way.
Well, nobody. Let me just tell you, nobody. We all know this, but nobody in the local sports media knows more about the stadium stuff than Rick Snyder does. He knows everything.
Yeah, he does. It goes Rick Snyder, then maybe like 5 other people, and I'm actually pretty high up there because I just obsess about it so much.
And I'm probably up there. At this point, I'm probably up there, too. I'm probably way up there, too, at this point.
Yeah.
Nobody but me has looked through the Prince George's County real property records, okay?
No. Even Rick Snyder hasn't done that.
I have done that, kids.
Yeah, you guys lead torturous existences, I gotta say. I don't know why.
Hey, I spent a whole weekend manually counting injured reserve numbers for the entire NFL, so.
It's insanity. It's true insanity. All right, well, very good. We will obviously keep our eyes on that situation because, like you said, Steve, that a stadium in the district, again, is, I think, everyone's priority here. That's a fan. Let's move on from there and talk about this Jaguars game because, boy, oh boy, have we put it off, but we can't do it any longer, guys. We've got to talk about this game.
Yeah, do we have to?
Yes, we do. And I got to say, after watching some game tape, after looking at some stats and thinking about this situation, I know we're similarly ranked, but yeah, I think this is going to be a tough game to win. So, what do you guys think? Should we start offense?
Okay.
Sure.
Redskins
Our
offense, that
offense?
is?
Yeah.
Redskins. Well, first of all, it's pretty
Wait,
telling
we have an
that
offense?
the 4-9 Jaguars are a 7-point favorite in this game. Okay?
Right.
For an
Is
NFL
that
game,
surprising?
that is a lot for an NFL game.
Yes.
Is anybody surprised?
I am.
No.
I'm a little
Really?
bit surprised the line was that big. I mean, Jamal, you are way more into betting than I just follow it just for the sake of our preview.
Yeah.
Is that how big a line really is that? I mean, would you bet that line?
So, it depends. First, I look at data first, but in terms of the line itself, it's basically saying, like, on a neutral field that the Jaguars are just overall the better team. They're 4.5 points better. If they were on a neutral location, you automatically get 3 or 3.5 when you're at home. So 7 points at home. It's a fair spread for a team that's going up against a depleted Washington offense and a defense that's been 32nd in the league since the Atlanta game. They've been dead last. So,
yeah.
The spread isn't off at all, actually. Go ahead.
One other number I was going to throw at you that I saw in looking up some of the stuff, the total points for this is one of the record lows for the NFL this season. I think they projected it to be 36 points overall.
That's the lowest in 5 years, too.
Yeah.
Wow. Two prolific offenses. Okay, in terms of offense, let's start with Josh Johnson. I mean, he looked pretty good in garbage time in the fourth quarter against the Giants. He brought a new energy to the field. He used his legs. He ran some RPOs successfully. You know, it looked to me just if you watch the film and I didn't spend a ton of time studying it this week, but it looks like he's seeing the field better than Mark Sanchez did. All that
that's not saying a lot, but
I understand that. But I mean, this is our options here, okay? All that having been said, though, we were talking about the Giants ahead by 40 points. The defense was barely awake. They were, in fact, playing soft, and all they were trying to do is they played their second string there at the end of the game. So I don't think we need to read too much into it. But Josh is certainly a better option than Mark Sanchez. We've proven that. The Sanchez experiment failed
if only anybody could have predicted that.
Yeah, right.
Go ahead.
Well, to your point, I think he brings, like you said, a new energy. I think he does some good things with his legs. Honestly, with the team built the way it is right now, without receiving talent, with the issue, it's not happening with
the injuries at the interior of the O-line. Yeah,
I mean, it's being able to get out there and run yourself honestly, I think that does add a lot to the team right now. But that said, he hasn't been on this team and playing with this team long enough, I think, to play well for 60 minutes without epic numbers of mistakes. So I actually agree with everything you said, but like you, it's just hard to gin up much confidence. I think the mistakes are going to outweigh the good thing he's bringing. But yeah, he's the best option right now. God, that's depressing to say.
He said a lot of good things at the presser. He spoke. He's now the starting quarterback, so he did the Wednesday presser, for the players, and he had a lot of good things to say. I'm not going to read all this stuff, but I'll read a couple of things about this. And the beat writers, and we're not there, by the way, if anybody was wondering. It's just the day-to-day beat writers.
Right, of course.
But this is the transcript they send out. And they asked him about the difficulty of maintaining his confidence, because remember Alex read through, we tried to see if Alex could get through it in one breath, the whole list of teams, the whole list of teams. And, of course he couldn't because it's really long. But he's, anyway, they asked him about the difficulty of maintaining confidence. And, and he says, I'll always reflect back on reality for myself. Growing up in Oakland, California, I understand real struggle. I understand the mentality we tend to have in the inner city. For me, not only am I setting an example of what resilience is, I can't tell, here's the part I liked. I can't tell a younger kid, I can't tell my own kid how important it is to keep their mind on something if my actions don't reflect that. They hold me accountable as well when I interact with youth because it's important for me to practice what I preach. And I think what he was saying there is...
It's beautifully put.
Yeah, he's saying I need to be ready. I may not ever get my chance, but I need to be ready. And the other thing, and I'm not going to read all this, but they kept asking about this, and he said that he's been keeping a manual all these years. He said John Gruden told him to keep a manual on coaches. He says, keep a manual on coaches, keep a manual on how the league is moving, and always just stay updated. So this guy's been keeping notes, written notes in a book all these years, even if he hasn't been on a team. And so he's got notes and notes and notes. This is why I think, and I bet you Jay knows this, and Jay knows because he was with Josh, 2 years, almost 2 seasons. He knows that this guy is uber prepared, even if he's got physical limitations, in terms of consistency. So I think Jay probably knew that he would come in as ready as possible, which is all he could really expect at this point, from December off the couch dude. So maybe Josh was a smarter signing than we all laughed this off on this show, basically. Maybe that was a mistake because we didn't know how prepared this guy really was.
Well,
and how mature he was.
Go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead, Jamal. Well, I hate to say it, but just hear me out on this. Should we have just gone with a Josh Johnson type to begin with? Looking back on this and playing,
are you saying
hindsight?
Alex Smith?
Spend $71 million on a questionable quarterback who has, a decent resume, but nothing that's going to knock your socks off. With the dearth of talent on this team, should we have just gone for a guy that could have cost pennies on the dollar, but can do, maybe some versatile teams, knowing that the rest of the team's not there yet?
Well, that was Colt McCoy. You could have got a backup. That backup could have been Josh Johnson. But pennies on the dollar in terms of starting quarterback money, yeah, you had Colt McCoy. That was your fallback option. Of course, we know the injury history, so that doesn't have to be talked about. We know about that. However, your option could have been rolling with Colt, and then signing a guy like Josh Johnson, who apparently knows Jay Gruden for the last 5 years in his offense, and has been doing things like this. So that we could have, but that's it.
The decision's made, so, obviously I'm beating a dead horse here.
Yeah, you're just asking the question. I get it.
Well, I would say, you may have a point, but this team, their own assessment was they thought that they were closer to being a top team than they really are. And I don't know what made them think that when they looked at their roster, but that's what they thought.
Well, hell, looking back at my own predictions, I don't know where I was coming from with 8 or 9 wins. I don't know where.
Hey, my 5 wins looks pretty good.
It looks damn good.
But listen, Josh, I don't want everybody to jump too far on the Josh Johnson train.
No, do not.
Until we win a game, which we probably won't. Yeah.
Yeah, well, more than that. There's a history of performance. He appears to be a great guy. I admire him. I like, the fact that he unprompted brought up the fact that he wants to set an example for the kids in his neighborhood. All that's great, but there also is a record of performance from him, and so I think you're underselling Alex Smith a little bit, because Alex does have a history of performance. He did have a quarterback rating of over 100. Last year he was one of the best quarterbacks. It didn't translate really to this year, but he was getting better. And by the way, when did the wheels fall off the tracks? It was for this team. It was really offensively. It was really when, But in Alex Smith, the turnovers started when Alex went down, and the offense really went from riding the shoulder of the road straight off the cliff. That happened when Alex went out.
Yeah, let's not pretend Smith was lighting it up at the same time.
Like I said, it was on the shoulder of the road.
Right.
It was on the road, and when it went completely off, Thelma and Louise style, that was when he went out. And so I think we're underselling I think we've all undersold Alex's, even though he's not Peyton Manning. We've undersold Alex a little bit.
I think if he were healthy for the last 4 games that he's missed,
a game or 2 at least, probably.
Yeah, we would probably be sitting at 8-8. Or we'd be looking at 8-8 at least.
We'd be wonderfully mediocre like we always are.
Right. Right. We didn't lose anything by going from Kirk Cousins to Smith. It's not the play that gets you over the top.
Okay. Can I give some folks a little bit of insight into the Jaguars defense?
One thing before we start.
Go ahead.
Just a reminder. Josh Johnson still hasn't played it down yet, so. The Mark Sanchez interview was pretty impressive to some people out there. And Josh Johnson, I didn't hear it. So Steve, I'm just going off what you're saying. It sounds good. We just have to remember he does have to play again. And I hope to goodness that he makes these last 3 games somewhat less unbearable. I don't know a better way to say it, but he still has to play. And without playing in a few years, it has to. We'll see. I don't know.
Well, Steve, do you have his numbers from last week? What were they? It was like 195 passing and 60 rushing or something ridiculous like that?
Yeah, well, I think he didn't rush that for quite that many. But, yeah, I'll pull up here as we're talking. My biggest hope is that he just stays upright so we don't have to keep having the circus. The circus needs to move to some other town. We've seen enough of the Barnum Bailey circus in quarterback circus in D.C., I'm kind of done with it. So I just hope, if nothing else, he can finish out the season. Whether or not we win a game, I just want the drama to stop.
All I want to see from him, get me one touchdown, a game.
He got a touchdown last time.
I'm saying if he can be like here's a touchdown, he's scrambling, getting us into field position for a couple field goals, not a total embarrassment of an offense like it was under Sanchez. And frankly, Colt McCoy didn't look very good either.
Colt looked terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, here's his numbers. You asked, was it Alex you asked?
Yeah, it was me.
Okay, he was 11 for 16, 195 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Completion percentage was 68.75, and he rushed for 45 yards on 7 attempts.
45 yards. Okay. If you can put up around that much yardage every game, and at least puts us in a functional offense looking thing, not quite.
That was only 1 quarter, too. I mean, you got to transpose that into.
I'm assuming that teams will play him a little harder, when we're not down by 40, like you said.
That's the problem. I mean, they're going to game plan for him. It's not. Don't be surprised if. And the Jaguars are a good defense. Okay, don't be surprised.
They are, although they did struggle against guys like Mariota who can run.
They regressed last week.
They've been completely inconsistent all year. Totally inconsistent all year. As far as the Jaguars go, they have proven this year to be much, much better. They are a very high-quality defense against the pass. They are much more vulnerable against the run. Check this out. Quarterback rating, opposing quarterback rating, second lowest in the NFL. Completion percentage, third lowest in the NFL. Opposing quarterback completion percentage by the Jacksonville defense, third lowest. And this is not a turnover thing. These boys are minus 10 turnovers.
Wow.
And sacks, they've only had 25 sacks on the year. This is not a defense like the Redskins that's getting a ton of turnovers, or was when they were good, and getting a lot of sacks, but not really stopping anybody. The Jaguars are the opposite. They are just flat out stopping people in the air. Jalen Ramsey's been mouthing off all year, against practically every receiver he's faced. Hadn't done it against the Redskins because I don't think he really needs to, quite honestly. Because, I mean...
Who's he going to mouth off against?
Nobody.
Doxson.
Right. But
if he plays.
If he plays, Doxson's probably not going to play. He's in concussion protocol. But my point here is that if there's a vulnerability, it's on the ground. And the strength of the Redskins, theoretically, is the ground game, although we don't really have any strength. So I think what you can, particularly with Johnson as quarterback, I think what you can expect from the Redskins is a extremely run-heavy offense this week.
Well, and supposedly they were at practice running a lot of pistol read option stuff.
There was film of them running the pistol.
Right.
What your note about them on the ground, I would just throw out there. Last week against the Titans, I think it was a 99-yard.
Yeah, 99.
Yeah, Henry had that 99. He had a couple big runs, though.
Well, what's weird is that run looked very slow, and the defense looked like they had no closing speed at all. I mean, I know he kind of stiff-armed one guy, and
I think he stiff-armed like 8 guys.
Yeah, he did. But still, it just seemed like. It was weird. For a team that plays the pass so well, they seemed like they had no speed. So, hey, they let up 90-yard touchdowns. We scored one of those. Maybe it's the perfect recipe for a repeat.
Oh, and the other thing is, these dudes, this is the best special teams in the NFL.
Really?
Yeah, they are first in punt return defense and kickoff return defense, both. And so, our special teams have been terrible all year. I mean, we've had maybe one kickoff, that's a plus kickoff, and maybe one punt return. Expect 0. And so the field position battle, because their special teams are so good, and their punter is averaging over 44 yards a punt, too. This is going to be a low-scoring, grinded-out, ugly game one way or another.
Oh, my God.
in terms of the Redskins offense. This is not going to be Brett Favre slinging it around. This is going to be a lot of RPOs. A lot of Johnson's going to take off and run. When the read calls for it, it's going to be one of those games.
This is two elderly men beating each other with their canes. That's what this game is going to be like. I promise.
Because
the biggest thing would just have to be to limit turnovers. With the Redskins offense, it's too depleted. You're down to your fourth quarterback. You have Josh Johnson. Even if he's known Jay Gruden's system for a while, he doesn't know the players. He's been here for a few days.
No. He played Madden to learn them. That's what they say.
That helps him. But
that's pretty smart. I mean, whatever works.
But he hasn't been here for a while, and then you're asking. Essentially, you're going to ask AP to do something. Which is and it's the thing. This is the same defensive line from last year, and even though last year their rushing game in terms of the Jaguars defense, their run defense, it wasn't that great. It's still better in terms of their front seven. They're still better going up against the Washington Redskins offensive line and tight ends, because the tight ends will have to block and they'll likely have issues as well. So, yes, I mean, technically the Redskins will have to play a tough game up front and dominate the line of scrimmage somehow to have to win their matchups. However, it's going to be very hard within itself. So the next best thing that you can ask for is to limit the turnovers and at least avoid 3 and outs. And get down the field. At least if you can get 10 to 15 yards a drive, and just inch away at the field position, then that may help. But then, you got a defense who has been getting gashed. And I guess we're going to go to the Redskins defense soon. So,
do you realize how sad that sounds? I'm not criticizing what you said, Jamal, because
Jamal's describing how you played football in the 1950s, basically. Yes.
Yeah, I started laughing when you said hopefully we can get 10 or 15 yards. I mean, that's just so sad.
Yes,
right.
We're reaching for mediocrity.
Then we have, I'm pretty sure you guys know, but didn't we have like 3 first downs in the first half of the game last week? Something like that?
Yeah.
I don't even know if we had that.
No, we did. Yeah, no, it got a little bit better in the second half, in the second quarter. Yeah, we had something like that. Yeah. Listen, I mean,
a couple of negative yardage drives, I believe.
Yeah. This offense again has been weirdly inconsistent. The Cowboys lit them up, the Chiefs lit them up. That's not surprising. The Colts lit these guys up. The Titans lit them up. But at the same time, they held the Patriots to 20 points. The Jets barely counts as a team. I mean, they blanked the Colts. So it's just been, I think, for whatever the mojo they had last year, it just isn't working for them necessarily. Now because it's the Redskins, they're going to, be better. And it must be said, these guys are much better at home. Okay, of their 4 victories, 3 of them have been at home. They've only had 1 victory on the road. So it's. I mean,
it's a really inconsistent defense versus a struggling offense. It could be okay and it could be bad, but those are the two options. It's not going to go great for our.
But luckily, on the other side of the ball, it's almost the exact same.
Yeah, well, you're right. So let's get into that because.
Can I say one more thing real fast before you do that? Somebody mentioned Adrian Peterson. I don't know if everybody really realizes what Peterson was on the verge of doing. I'm not going to go through all of this, but I wrote an article back in September, called Adrian Peterson may be on the verge of something else great. And basically, I went through all the numbers for all running backs age 33 and over that I've ever played. And the season, the pace that he is on right now, he's on a pace to have basically the greatest season for a running back age 33 or over ever. I'm not going to go through all the numbers, but if he can average over 4 yards a carry, 200 over 1,000 yards, 200 or more carries, 250 more carries, nobody's ever done that. So I mean, for his age, what he's done this year.
What is his total yardage right now? Do you have that?
Yeah, no, I have it. He is at 872.
Wow, I didn't realize he was up that high. I thought he was still in the low 700s.
Listen, no, I mean he's fifth in the league in carries, 202 carries already. I'm just telling you guys, this is not a spectacular season by, Todd Gurley standards, what is he, 25?
Something like
that, for his age, this season may be, if it keeps up, the greatest season for an age 33 or over running back ever.
He's still already up there.
Yeah.
I mean,
in terms of meeting all the marks, like Riggins is going to beat him on yardage. Riggins is over 1,300 yards, but he also averaged 3.6 yards a carry.
Right.
Anyway, I don't want to go too much into it, but I just want everybody to realize that this is a special thing we're watching.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, if the diagnosis is good this week, he could absolutely get a nice big game. Let's move over to defense and let's blow through it because, my goodness, we're over. But we are, like I think somebody said, we got a gas defense. I think that was you, Jamal, and it's absolutely true. The one thing I can say about the Jaguars' offense is, unlike the Redskins, where there's at least a little bit of mystery, you're kind of like, oh, maybe he'll be better than everyone we've seen so far. I feel like there's no mystery about the Jaguars' offense.
No.
They're pretty atrocious.
No.
Consistently. So, what are you guys seeing in them being able to do against us?
Well, I mean, when you're on the Cody Kessler train, the train's about to derail.
Yeah. I think I saw something that they haven't scored more than 10 points since he started or something like that.
Well, Kessler replaced Bortles.
Right.
Bortles has been mediocre at best his entire career.
That's all.
Sure.
Cody Kessler has been better. Kessler is completing 66% of his passes this year. His quarterback rating is at least better than Bortles. Yes, they have not scored a ton of points, but Kessler's probably a better choice. The Jaguars roll with Leonard Fournette and T.J. Yeldon.
Right.
It's kind of a tandem thing. They both were hovering about 100 yards a carry or 100 attempts this year. From a passing standpoint, their best receiver is on IR, in Marquise Lee. And our old buddy Niles Paul is been put on IR. So this is really...
That's the most shocking thing ever.
Yeah, you don't say.
In terms of the Jaguars, this is the D.D. Westbrook and Dante Moncrief show in the air. And they're both are decent, nothing special. Cody Kessler's nothing special. It's kind of a blah offense. But if they get the running game rolling, which this is the Redskins, so this could happen, they could, don't be surprised if they do a little bit better than they've been doing recently.
Sure.
Well, look, it's going to come down to how well our defense can play to their potential. We've seen better. We've seen enough out of them to I think we could say they could shut out Jacksonville if they show up. They could do it. They've got the talent. Like Steve said, who in that list of names is really causing you anxiety? Is Moncrief really causing you anxiety?
No,
Leonard
none of them are.
Leonard Fournette is the one, but he's only averaging 3.5 yards a carry this year.
Exactly, and I think
he's a big guy, right? Isn't he more just the power back type?
Yes,
and he's had big games against us, I believe, before. But still, that's just not enough. That we have more talent on our defense than they do on their offense. It's as simple as that.
Well, I think you're right in theory, but given the off the field nonsense we're seeing from Brown and Foster, and we've already seen it from Swearinger and Norman throughout the season. I think this defense has, unfortunately, I think they've quit.
They're done. Yeah. And I just tell you guys, the same Underground Railroad I checked in with yesterday told me that there's a lot of dissension in this locker room right now. And there's a couple players, which I won't name because I can't confirm it, but there's a couple players that have really mouthed off quite a bit, and a couple of them that are causing major problems in this locker room.
Just say it in pig Latin.
No. I think that this is a much more splintered defensive locker room than people realize, which is why it was so apparent that they quit last week.
Yeah. I think I think they have quit. I think, I think we can all kind of guess who the problems are. It doesn't seem like it'd be very hard to figure that out right now.
There are names that keep coming up.
I'll tell you guys off the air.
Yeah. But, I just wish we just don't have the depth to say, all right, you're not caring, you're not fighting, you're done. They don't have enough people to bench somebody like Josh Norman who's been underperforming.
Well, the best defensive player on this roster is on the NFL exempt list right now.
Well, I would say Matt Ioannidis might still be a pretty good player. I'm joking.
Because
I know.
You know why? Yeah.
Well, he also led this team in sacks until he got hurt.
Yeah, he's looked good. He looked good this year. You have to admit it.
Did he make you breakfast this morning or something, Alex? Is that what's
No,
going on?
I had like a 3-day-old donut for breakfast. It was awful. Yeah.
He's in the doghouse now. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Look, can I ask you guys a question that fans are probably going to hate hearing me ask this, but it's on everyone's mind. Let me just ask you. Are you going to be disappointed if the Redskins – what's going to disappoint you more? If the Redskins win out here, win the next few games miraculously, or if they just lose out the rest and get better positioning for next year? What's going to disappoint you more? I mean, like I said, I know that's a negative question to ask.
Well, I wouldn't be disappointed if they win. But at the same time, period. Actually, I wouldn't be disappointed if they win. It kind of defeats some narratives that's going on right now. Although I wholeheartedly believe that there does need to be changes at the end of the season. But at the end of the day, winning wouldn't necessarily get in the way of changes at the end of the season. I believe that if they were to win 2 out of the last 3, or at least one game, and competitive at least in the other 2, you have to say that there's some people in this roster who still cares, and in the locker room that still cares. So yeah, I wouldn't be mad if they won some games, at least one. Like I said, so I wouldn't be mad at all.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in the lose out for draft position kind of game.
The suck for luck theory?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just never have been a big fan of that concept. I think you try and win every game. You know, it's just a pride thing at some point.
I mean, if you're asking me if I'm going to be upset if the Redskins claw out of the 7 depths of hell that they're in to win the last 2 games and end up with a winning record in 9-7 and probably at least be in decent contention for a playoff spot, if you're asking me, I'm going to not want that. Of course I want that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think that's very unlikely, given what we've seen. But
yes.
Of course, I'm with Alex. I hate the suck for luck thing. It drives me insane. That's next year. I'll worry about. I don't care about. I don't so much care about 5 draft places on 5 places on the draft board. I could care less about that right now. It's in the middle of the season. I'd much rather see the team play well and win. And if they do win 3 games, that means Johnson really did lead the team well,
right?
And it means the defense has overcome all their issues and at least played well enough to beat up on the Jaguars, the Titans, and the Eagles. And all that is far better to me than worrying about how far we can climb up the first-round draft pick list.
Well,
and I want to clarify too that I don't want the team to lose. I don't really believe in suck for luck either. But let me clarify. Them winning out at this point isn't going to change anything about how I feel about this team and the state that they're in. If they win these games, exactly. It's
the window for this roster is done. Yeah,
exactly. That's why winning is it's not going to register on my emotional scale here at all. So that I guess I should have posed it more that way. Mm-hmm. No one's disappointed if they win. Of course, I want to see that, but at the same time, it ain't making me feel much more positive about the situation.
One thing I'd also mention is I honestly don't think, even if they had like a top 10 draft pick, I don't see that really making much of a difference in terms of how this roster's got to be rebuilt. One top 10 pick is not going to, solve 14 different issues that we have.
I don't know if you guys out there read my column from Wednesday, but it was called "It's Time for Big Change."
Sure.
And I stand by that. Whether or not they win 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, or 3 games, it doesn't matter. I think this entire franchise, I think the entire front office needs to be fired. I think Bruce Allen needs to go. I think they don't just need to move him. He needs, to some other position, to be,
They could move him to California.
Snyder's.
He's got that house in California. Move him there.
Snyder's, beer guy or whatever. He needs to go, and they need to bring in some other third party who's not a Redskins legend, who's not associated with this franchise, and let him rebuild from the ground up. I have zero faith that this front office is going to use the number 14 or whatever overall draft pick in such a way that it's going to matter. I think they need to start over from ground zero, and that was the focus of my column. And whether or not they win 3 games doesn't change my opinion on that at all. I think this entire staff needs to go.
Right, and
Amen.
like it or not, we also are stuck in the Alex Smith contract for a year or two, whatever that ramification is.
I mean, look, the Redskins.
I don't want to be.
They do have some insurance to make the number drop a tiny bit, but not enough to make a bit of difference. There is zero chance. His contract basically says if he retires, he forfeits his guarantees. So that means he's not going to retire. But what that means is he's going to ride the PUP list next year probably.
Mm-hmm.
So which is better than him retiring, because retiring would be anyway. So it's really tough for those of you like rooting for a guy like Teddy Bridgewater. It's just not going to happen, I don't think.
No, we're going to be bargain basement shopping for a quarterback for 2 seasons.
The Josh Johnson era might be closer to reality than any of us think.
Yeah.
Woo! Oh, what a wild time to be alive. All right, we've gone so far over, so let's put the kibosh on this thing. Let's do game predictions and close it out. Look, I'll just start us off because it's probably going to be the most depressing. 13-10 Jags, and I've been criticized for being very negative, but I got to go with my heart. 13-10 Jags.
I actually don't think you're 12 off. I'm going 14-12 Redskins.
Nice.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll go.
Jamal?
I can see that.
I'd go probably 21-13 Jacksonville.
A little more confidence in a higher scoring game. I like it.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in this defense. I do think that Johnson is going to be a breath of fresh air for the offense, so they may do a little better, but this defense is totally quit on the season. They want their vacation. So, yeah, I think the Jaguars are going to score a few more points. And so I think Jamal's in the right track. Just to be different, I'll say 24-10, but something like that.
All right.
24-10, I'm sorry, you're saying
Jaguars. Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, you heard it here first. We will let you all go. Thanks for being with us this time, and we will see you after the Jags game to recap what will hopefully be a stunning victory. Until then, have a great one.
I'm holding my breath.
Don't, you'll faint.